All right, welcome into the Ryan Ripken Show. Happy Thursday. We're almost to the weekend, but we're not there yet. And because of that, we got a show to give you. And let's just talk about what we have on the docket today. Well, look, it is hot outside, or it's very muggy, but it is even hotter with this trade deadline. We're having Jim Duquette, former GM of the New York Mets, current MLB analyst. He's going to come on and break down everything that's going on in the world of the trade deadline. And man, there are some spicy topics, including, is there one ace pitcher available from the Detroit Tigers? Then obviously we're going to take you around Maryland here to start off. There's some great events. The Stateside Cup is coming to Annapolis soon. There was some Ravens news that we kind of knew, but it's interesting that it was true maybe from a year prior and what could have been in Baltimore if it happened. And then, yes, we're going to preview the Rangers and Orioles. The All-Star break is wrapping up. And there are some other trade pieces that are possibly available that don't have to do with the Orioles, but we're going to talk about baseball. And maybe we all like a good hot dog, but there is something that Kansas City just came out with that I don't know if I can stomach to put in my body. But hey, let's go around the room here real quickly with who we have. And on my right, we have Zach Bollinger. How we doing?
Just a great day. Just a great day. You know, that's all. I'm just happy to be here. I'm excited to talk trades.
It is a great day, and it's really an interesting choice of words.
Streamed in so long, and it's been 2 days, but I'm just so used to with the Orioles, so much happening. That's like, it's weird. It feels like all sports just stopped over the past few days.
It really did. And I'm ready to get back into a routine.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing for us. But hey, talk about routine. We still got almost a full house in here.
Yeah.
We got Zach and Rocco on my left. Kevin and Rocco.
Wow.
Well,
That's
it's
are you going to take that kind of disrespect from that man?
Oh, sugar. I'm sorry, Kev.
I'm the one that's tired here, and you're already messing up. So I think you probably just have too much trade talk on your mind. That's there's not enough room to remember my name.
There isn't.
Which tells you a lot.
All right, let's dive into this a little bit quickly here. And I know a lot of people I've gotten a few comments about what's happening. We will talk about it. And you're right, Marcus, we did survive the dirt and grass soda. That was a tough moment for the group, but here we are. All right, let's go around Maryland here for a second, guys. And it's 2 weeks away. Let's kick it off that way. Stateside Cup down in Annapolis, down at Navy Marine Corps Stadium. We're all going to be there July 31st. And actually, for our Holy Shirts and Pants members, you're going to see this soon. We're having one of the Crystal Palace players join us for a special recording. Rob Holding is going to talk about the game coming up, but also he's a huge American sports fan, so stay tuned for that. But guys, we all have our credentials, right? Kevin, you signed up. Rocco,
I did. Yep,
you're there.
I'm
got approved, baby.
Yeah,
got
so
approved.
we're good to go.
We are ready to rock and roll. We're going to be there. It's an 8 p.m. game. Go to statesidecup.com. Tickets are as low as $35, and we will see you there. I'm really excited for it, guys. Honestly, we're talking about cool events. The Big Three came to Baltimore. This is another event that you don't get to see here very often, and it's going to be an electric atmosphere and a different perspective in Baltimore. How about this then? Switching gears now to another comment, or at least topic, before we get into all the trade discussions. I guess the reports last year were true after all at the NFL trade deadline, right, guys? Derrick Henry, the rumor was there was a deal done that he was coming to Baltimore at the deadline. And then it seemed that someone up top really said, nope, he's not coming to Baltimore. So, Zach, if you could elaborate a little bit more specifically, or it's right there. Okay. And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is from Kevin, the source for this from The Athletic.
Oh, Dan Pompey of The Athletic. Yep.
Okay. So Dan writes here, for those that are listening, because we have it on Spotify and Apple here, for those that are listening, DaCosta agreed to the framework of a trade with Tennessee general manager Ron Carthon, a fourth-round pick that could have become a third had Henry reached certain production levels. However, others in the Titans hierarchy apparently were not on board with the deal, so Derrick Henry played out the season in Nashville. So there was truth to it, guys. There was a lot of truth to it. But I guess is now have the question, and now he's in Baltimore, but what could have been if Derrick Henry was a Baltimore Raven for the final games or the final half of the season going into the postseason? Are we? I don't like playing the what if game, but would that have made a difference?
I feel like we know one thing for certain: Derrick Henry would not have gotten 6 carries in the AFC Championship. At least I like to think that. You know, obviously we've seen all the comments from all the coaches, players talking about game plan, how it just kind of got away from them. I just still find it hard to believe the Ravens don't run the ball more if you have Derrick Henry in the backfield in that AFC Championship. So I'm going to say it changes a lot. Does that mean the Ravens go out and win the Super Bowl? Who knows?
Yes.
But I will say, I think the game would have looked a lot different. I'm not sure if they win it still. I'm not sure what happens, but I think it would have been a lot different game and a lot different end of the season if Derrick Henry had been in Baltimore, November, December?
Yeah. And the reason why we're bringing this up, because it's trade deadline time, right? So this was the NFL trade deadline. We have MLB approaching here in the next couple of weeks and moves that could be monumental. And Kevin, I think the criticism would have been if Derrick Henry didn't get the ball in the postseason, as much as the Ravens were criticized in the AFC Championship game, could you have imagined the outrage and uproar if he didn't get the ball? Because physically, it's really hard to miss him on the football field. And he's only been the best running back for the last 6-7 seasons?
Yeah, no, he's incredible. And I mean, we talk about it now, him being on the team, hypothetically. Well, what if he was on the team during that championship game? And, now that they have Derrick Henry, there's no way if they make it back in that situation, they would run the running backs only 6 times. And that's exactly what it is, because the other thing with Henry too is as a receiver, he's very underrated. I know people look at him and they see this big, human that's massive, but he has underrated speed. And so even if, they weren't handing him the ball, he could have still made an impact as a receiver. And from a Titans perspective, I can't understand this. The reasoning being that I believe they didn't want another A.J. Brown situation where essentially one of their franchise cornerstones, they move off of him very quickly to Philadelphia. It's kind of like a sour exit. For Derrick Henry, he's one of the franchise legends over there. So if you trade him and you don't give him that kind of like last ride and last hurrah, you're like, all right, is this another A.J. Brown thing? Now, I would have gotten it if it was maybe like a 6th rounder or like a 5th rounder, but this is like a day 2 pick potentially that you're working with here. Yeah. So it's a 4th that, again, I think it was with certain production stipulations is we talked about there. It could have gone to a 3rd. From an organizational, and first of all, for a running back, that's a pretty good deal in today's game.
That's incredible.
It's a great value deal. So I get, and he ended up running for I think 153 yards in the final game of the year against Jacksonville. They upset Jacksonville to win, and he gave this speech on the field, and it was great, and it was a great feel-good moment. But they chose that over the draft pick, which again, some people will agree, some people will disagree. But them not having that extra draft capital, I don't know. I think from a franchise perspective, you're trying to build that team out. You're now short a mid-round draft pick there. Yeah,
well, you know what? And this is the case, Rock. And I know I'll let you get to your point, but essentially, this was one of the feel-good moment. The two outcomes here is one, they wanted Derrick Henry to have that good send-off, and it meant so much to them. And the second thing is Tennessee and Baltimore are not friends. It's not friendly right now. And I feel like both of those, even though you don't want emotions to get in the way, clearly it felt like in this situation, there's a little bit of animosity here of we don't want to be the reason why one of our out-of-division rivals goes on to something that they hadn't accomplished, or they've been chasing for all these years and have been so close sometimes.
If you look just at what Derrick Henry did, and Kevin brought it up in the final game of the regular season, behind that putrid Titans offensive line, 19 carries, 153 yards, and a touchdown. Just imagine what he would have done in Baltimore in the postseason. Honestly, it makes you think, it makes you wonder. We hate to play the hypothetical game, but we have to, because that's the report that just came out, that these two sides were so close to getting a deal done and bringing King Henry here to Baltimore last season. I'm telling you this, Rip, we don't know what could have happened. Obviously, you don't know with injuries and whatnot, but Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the postseason in an AFC championship game, I'm taking them over a lot of teams, if not all teams in the National Football League when it comes to that, especially with how hot the Ravens were playing without Derrick Henry, without having him in the backfield. 6 carries is not happening with Derrick Henry. Like Zach, to your point, here in Baltimore in the AFC championship game against the Chiefs, they talked about, how the different looks in the box looked. Like it doesn't matter. With Derrick Henry all of that goes away. I mean, this is a guy that is built like a defensive lineman, and he's running at you downhill. He's a physical freak, a force of nature. So the Ravens, in my opinion, they would have gone on to win the Super Bowl. But like we said, coulda, woulda, shoulda have. We're playing the hypothetical game. It's time to take that mentality, that momentum, and do something about it this year with him in purple and black.
And at least in this case, it's fresh starts for not only the player, for Derrick Henry coming to Baltimore, still having a chance to win the Super Bowl, and then the Titans, it's a fresh start. You cleaned house, right? And they still have Will Levis, obviously, who they're hoping. They put some pieces around. They brought in a new head coach. They are hoping, and then they brought in some replacements. They got Spears, they got Tony Pollard. We'll find out there, but we just thought it's interesting. We had to bring that up here as we're going around, but this is what we're talking about now. It's like a deadline special. The NFL, I feel like it's so hard to make an impact trade at the deadline where it goes off and makes the full impact. Like I know in the previous years, like Roquan got traded to Baltimore, right? Like that's a big move. Christian McCaffrey got traded during the season to the 49ers, but in both those, it's not like in baseball when you look at it. You can go back and see the moves that happen. And I'm curious, and that's something we're going to ask Jim Duquette, like who's going to be this year's Jordan Montgomery? Like there's going to be multiple moves for players. We just don't know. In the NFL, it's a lot of speculation. And also guys got to stay healthy on that side of it. So we will see what happens here. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
You want to drop it again?
I'm not saying anything, by the way.
You know what's crazy?
You tweeted
when you say you don't open your mouth to say it. So what if you did open your mouth? Would you go
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on from that segment here.
Kevin, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Never do that again.
You're welcome.
And if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show. We do it live every Monday and Thursday. And look, we appreciate all the help, and the more that we can continue to grow this and we grow it the way that we expect, we're going to do this show more daily is the goal, right? So if you guys also to help us out, if you can join the membership, that's great. Also, because everyone's seeing Skubal be on there, it's a topic. How about this for the Holy Shirts and Pants members? I will be doing a Skubal breakdown after the show later on today. You guys can tune in, and I can tell you why I think he's so talented. And it's not saying that people are going to trade. It's not saying the Orioles are getting him, but I just want people to understand why his stuff is so good and why he's really considered one of the best options out there and one of the best pitchers in the game right now. And give us a listen on Spotify and Apple, right, Rock? We don't do this enough. We don't talk about it enough. We got to make sure that we plug that more and more.
Got to get our reviews up and the ratings up. And we're not fishing for reviews and ratings. If you guys love the show, rate it whatever you want. If you hate Zach, you can give it a 1-star, or me or Kevin. It is what it is. But without your feedback and without the ratings and reviews, we're not really going to know how well or how not well we're doing. We appreciate the feedback, and it helps us get better in the long run. So we appreciate everyone in the chat, the conversations we have, but let's keep it going forward for sure.
All right. Amen. And right there, Q, appreciate you. Been on there from the beginning. You become a Holy Shirts and Pants member for exclusive sneak peeks and live streams. When we have other big guests coming on, you guys will be the first to know as well. And for a lot of our events that we have coming up. And also, it goes back into making all this better. We're trying to make this into a production. And yes, it's been fun, but we're committed to this. Whether you like us or not, we are staying with this, and we are going to continue to grow this Ryan Ripken Show community. And it's going to be based out of Maryland, obviously. But yes, we're going to sprinkle in some other things because that is what we do. And there's one thing I wanted to show here real quickly. Where was it? With Trace, you're right. If you're on Instagram and you get really nostalgic about Baltimore sports moments, go check out the Instagram page, Baltimore Sports Nostalgia. You might get too nostalgic and get too much in your feels, but there are some great moments that you guys should check in. So before we have Jim Duquette come on here, guys, is there anything on your guys' minds after leaving this All-Star game? I mean, the first take for me, besides that the uniforms, there's no other way to say that those uniforms are not special. You can sell them all you want. Don't wear them in the game.
Yeah.
Don't wear them in the game.
Wear it in the Derby. You can make money by saying they're the Derby jerseys.
Yeah.
And the bunt competition that we're gonna make happen.
Competition has to happen.
Has to happen. So I think personally, besides, take out all those moments. Highlights, Paul Skeens, very electric. He made that splitter, splinker, whatever it's called, to Gunnar, and Gunner's throwing a wand out there to try to hit it. Disgusting. He was as advertised. I thought that was great for the sport. And I love the moments that people have, like Jaron Duran, who is the face of baseball now, according to our friend Kyle Corwin, a 3-0 take. But those moments for me, I think, are the special moments of the All-Star game. Those are my takeaways. You guys got anything from the game to wrap up?
Shohei Ohtani is just cursed to live in this horrific, just no matter who he plays with, whether it's one of the other greatest of all time, like Mike Trout, whether it's with the Dodgers or with the literal National League All-Stars. He was responsible for the team's only walk and every single one of the team's RBIs in the losing outcome. So I think this is just Shohei Ohtani's reality. I think it just, no matter what he does, he's just going to be a stud and his teams are going to let him down. I think that, unfortunately, may just become his reality.
It might. You know what? It was great. And Shohei Ohtani goes deep and the National League All-Stars lose the game.
It's incredible. It's incredible. No matter who, he's literally with the All-Stars and he's carrying the team.
Well, and also, to be fair, the American League has owned the All-Star game over the years. Rocco, any other thoughts with the All-Star game?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool for Anthony Santander. Little Tony Taters action to get a hit in the All-Star game, his first All-Star game. He's 29 years old, former Rule 5 pick. And to see him, set foot on that stage and make the most out of it. I mean, it's one thing to play, but to get a hit and to actually, stand there on first base, look around and see what you're doing right then and there. Because at the end of the day, like, the journey, I'm sure, hasn't been an easy one for Anthony Santander, but he is really settled in here in Baltimore, and this fan base loves him. And to me, he is one of the most underrated hitters when it comes to power in Major League Baseball. I don't know if he gets the love necessarily that he should, because, he's not on a Yankees team where it's a quote unquote big market or they're always in the spotlight. But listen, the Orioles are getting more and more in the spotlight. And if people don't know Anthony Santander, they better know the name now, and they better know the name going forward, because really great to see, but he's just a special baseball player. And to see that was really cool for the O's.
It was. I mean, and that's the moments, right? Like you work so hard to get it. And even though if you're being replaced or you are a replacement to get in, these guys are grinding, busting their ass for a moment like this. And you never know if you're going to get back there. And that's why when I looked at with Duran, and there was a montage of criticism from Duran in past years for people saying his attitude or not making the right plays. But when he talked after the game and seeing just how he's like, I can't believe that I'm here being with these guys. You saw it with Tony Taters then. You saw it then, the smiles from Jordan Westberg. It's truly an honor. Kevin, you have any thoughts from the game or the Derby?
Yeah, I just think also seeing so many Orioles there representing the team, I completely agree, where it's like there was so many years where we just talked about these 100-loss teams and teams that, of course, they get their honorary representative, but these guys earned it. And although some of them were replacements and probably should have gotten in the initial vote, but regardless, it's cool to see so many Orioles there representing. Corbin gets the start, and it's something cool to reflect on, and hopefully we get many more years of that.
I do too. The one thing I will say I did not like Ken Rosenthal interviewing Corbin Burns on the mound.
Thank you. As he went out, that was giving me so much anxiety. I was like, I can get in the zone, people. If that would have happened before like a playoff game or something, I would have lost my mind.
No, it should never happen. Also, size difference between the two individuals, it's very glaring. But I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I know we're trying to make it better. I know David Ortiz being in the dugout, and you're trying to have more activities, and some of it's fun, some of it's not. But I don't personally, you want to mic up the guys during the All-Star game, I'm cool. I don't need to hear what Corbin Burns, what it feels like to start the All-Star game on the All-Star mound 2 minutes before he's about to throw the pitch. We can just ask him after he's done pitching. How was that moment? It was everything. It was great. So whatever it's going to be. It's just trying to do a little bit too much. I get it. You're
Fielders,
trying to brand. What?
Fielders, I get. Like, I get when they went over and talked to Marcus Semien while he's standing at second base, where he obviously plays every day at Texas Rangers Stadium, asking about that stuff. I understand. The pitchers is where I'm like, okay, listen, he's still trying to go out there and do his job. Like,
And Corbin is a routine type of guy.
Yeah.
Like once he gets into a rhythm, once he gets into a routine, he is locked in. I'm sure like I'd be interested to see how he really felt about that. I'm sure we'll never know, honestly, but I wonder if he enjoyed doing that or completely just like hated it and was just like, let me pitch, man. Let me go out there and do my thing.
Final thought. Corbin Burns absolutely perfected the red carpet look of I just had twins. Weeks ago. He showed up in the jumpsuit and was just there and back. He was like, I showed up to pitch this inning. Then I'm going back to dad.
That was a peak male performance.
Did you guys know? So I saw something with Skeens. It was like they kind of shouted him out for staying the entire All-Star game. I didn't realize that you could just like leave. Like players just left after an inning or left after 2 innings, so they could even do that. So that's news to me. I don't know if that's news to you guys, but I thought everybody just stayed there the whole time and enjoyed the experience. But they made it seem like guys don't, and Skeens was staying there and kind of soaking it all in was a big deal. So I'm not sure what the deal is there.
Yeah, I mean, back then, a lot of guys, you'd stay through all the festivities. Like you're there. I mean, personally, for me, if I had the chance, like, I'm trying to soak it all in. Yeah. But I get it. You're at different points of your career. I mean, Corbin Burns on his side, like he started the game, which is an unbelievable moment.
Yes,
different part of his life.
Just had twins.
Just had twins. Basil, Kevin, twins.
Austin Powers.
Kevin, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
All right, I think then we can get ready to bring on our guest here, and we brought to you as we take a trip through the MLB trade deadline. Why don't we hop on our Adams Jeep of Aberdeen here? Oh, great form, fellas.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you.
No,
thank
Kevin,
you.
not really.
No, you can't take it back.
All right, I won't take it back. But our friends up at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen, that beautiful sign right behind Zach. Hey, now.
Wrong way.
There it is. Same thing.
Right.
Adams Jeep in Aberdeen. They've been one of our OG sponsors from the start. Them, and obviously we love our friends at the Iron Rooster as well. Shout out Kyle and the Iron Rooster. But for Adams Jeep in Aberdeen, you go and buy a used vehicle up there, and you use the phrase, Rocco sucks. I love the Ryan Ripken Show. I don't like Rocco, but I like everything with the Ryan Ripken Show. However you want to word it, $500 gas card, up to $1,000, depending on how Chuck and Matt are feeling at the time of the purchase. But go check them out up there. They've been a great friend to us, and we appreciate their support. They've really helped us continue to grow this. Sorry, Rocco. And no family members cannot take advantage of the offer.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's bring on our guest then now, finally, shall we? If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe. And the reason why I'm excited to have him on is, well, he's gone through this process. He then also talks about it. He's one of the best minds personally for me to have this discussion with. He was the GM of the Mets. He's had extensive work around Major League Baseball. And then now he's still in tune with being an MLB analyst on so many different waves, television, radio, Sirius XM in the past, whatever you name it. So let's bring on my friend, Jim Duquette. Jim, how you doing?
What's up, Ryan? How are you, buddy?
Uh-oh, I don't know if I can hear you, though. Can you guys hear?
Nope.
No.
Uh-oh.
Jim, you're not the first person that has this issue here. This has happened probably 22 times.
It's a Jim thing.
How about now? Is that any better?
It did happen with Jim Palmer.
Gyms just can't get the audio right when it comes to Zoom. We got to get it figured out right now.
Well, it's just
Did
two
that work
legends.
or no?
Yeah,
That's
that's exactly
true.
why. Can you hear us? I still can't hear
I
you.
can hear you. Can you?
We can't hear
me?
you. Okay, actually, but we're working on sign language, Jim. How about this? Can you go back out and enter back in that way, and we see if it works? Beautiful.
Oh,
They're
we
saying
know
they can hear
because this was the issue with the pre. They said that we can
Oh.
hear.
Great.
Oh,
Here, all right, let me see if we can work some technology here. Hold on.
This is
there you
great.
go, Kevin.
Awesome.
Kevin in action. Here he goes in his khakis.
Oh,
This is why we can't do anything. Have anything
Rocco,
nice.
how's your day going?
My day is going fantastic, Zach. Except for the fact that I have to sit here and have a conversation with you now.
That's why I had you sit over there, not next to me.
Yeah, I know, but it is what it is.
Um,
You're just a terrible person.
how's your day going? Or how's your past week going?
My past week has been fantastic. Got a lot done. Got a lot accomplished. Oh, here we go.
We might be okay.
I think. Are we back?
I don't know. I really don't know. We'll have to wait till Jim comes back. So yeah, sorry guys. I mean, usually it's a us. It's
Poor
not-
Jim thinks it's a him problem. It's us.
Yeah. You know, isn't that with the Taylor Swift song? It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
It's me.
But really, it is me.
Oh, here you go.
It is me.
Said, where's Brad? feel like you would have the audio fixed into. Let's not show Brad this clip, please, because we don't need his head to get any bigger than it already is when it comes to that.
Yeah.
He's somewhere cursing me out right now.
Yeah.
So,
I think we fixed it. We'll bring Jim back on here as soon as we.
I just heard the beep in my ear.
I heard the
feel
beep.
like
I heard the beep too. And Laura, thank you
thanks,
so much.
Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Where would we be? All right. We're going to try this again. Take 2 with Jim Duquette. Jim.
I can hear you. Can you
All
hear
right.
me?
So here's the thing. It wasn't you, actually.
us.
It was us.
Sounds like
It
a
was
breakup.
you. I know it was you. I'm going to take these off, though. Hold on a second here.
Whatever. Get comfortable. Get comfortable.
It's not you, it's me.
There we
It
go.
is.
You still got me?
Well, we got you. Yeah, the chat was
All right.
hearing you. Everyone was hearing you. How are you doing, by the way? You able
Everything's
to
good,
relax
man.
a little
Good to
bit?
see you, as
Yeah.
always. This is a first, by the way, because I did shows on SiriusXM with your dad, with Cal, and Uncle Billy, and now I'm on with you. So, like, I got 3 Ripkins in my life. My heart's full.
Well, there it is. I'm glad that I could fulfill that for you. But this is fantastic. You know what? Actually, you've been on more times now onto the show than Cal and Billy combined. So we're gonna have to work on that. We got to get the whole. We got to get the Duquette group. We got to get the Ripken group. We'll get it all figured out here eventually. But did you get some rest after? I know you were covering a lot of extensively. There was obviously the MLB draft just happened, and then obviously. I think your life's going to get a little bit more stressful with this deadline. Am I fair to say?
That's fair to say. The rest, it's hard to come by when you're, the full days. You've been to those All-Star games, the draft, the Derby, which, by the way, one of the more entertaining national anthems you'll ever see. I know where I was when we saw the crash and burn, and then the All-Star game. On top of that, which I always enjoy being there, but there's just long days, because you're there, well before you got we had a pregame show, we did a postgame show, caught up with most of the players, which was fascinating for me. We didn't get a chance to. We actually did talk to Gunnar. I didn't get to talk to Burns, but we did as a channel. We didn't get Santander, but we did get Westberg, so we got a chance to talk to Westberg. I love the draft the Orioles had, so we got a lot. You and I we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we really do. We really do. And we've touched on stuff with Honeycutt already so far. And but I think for right now, because the hottest thing, I mean, even though the draft's great and everyone's excited, but everyone, of course, they're thinking, well, the Orioles didn't draft enough pitchers. I hate to break it to people. Those pitchers this year were not going to make an impact for this team. We're going to talk about this deadline. Can you just walk us through real quickly what goes through a GM's mind as we approach this deadline, and how high does your blood pressure get as the moments kind of arise here? Because we're kind of getting into crunch time here. 2 weeks kind of left roughly. Yeah. And then our rosters essentially are going to be set for the rest of the way out.
So, these days, I'd say even in the last 6, 7, 8 years, the general manager plays even a bigger role in improving the guy that you're bringing in, trading for, it can play a major impact. And we've seen it, with teams going, to the World Series, whether it was the Braves back in 21 when their general managers traded for 3 outfielders and a couple of relievers. That we saw going back, even further than that, the Astros when they traded for Justin Verlander. The Dodgers when they traded for Scherzer and Trey Turner. Like it is a huge role, and the responsibility and just the high expectations of certain fan bases put that added pressure on you as a front office. So, this time of the year, your phone calls are coming in and out, or your texts or your emails, all of that's kind of coming in and out on a regular basis, daily. It's almost nonstop, and you're getting very little sleep. It's probably 5-6 hours of sleep because of the volume of information that you have to get. It's not just proposals that you're making, but if there's a willingness to do a deal, some kind of deal, it's all the medical information, the information, any type of information from your own system. If you're going to trade a couple of prospects, you got to get that on a nightly basis too. So, the flow of information, that's the thing that's maybe changed since I was in the front office, is the volume of information is probably 10 times the amount that we had access to back when I was working for the Orioles and for the Mets.
Yeah, I think that's a very good perspective. You're right. There is just so much more information that can be processed now, just with the evolution with the sport and technology. Well, I'm glad you brought up prospects then, because I think the hottest topic right now, the reports coming out with for a while it was Garrett Crochet was the name, but now there's been linked reports, and whether it's how truthful those reports are going to be, but Skubal is the name right now that is hot. And the biggest part is then for prospects. And right now, no team would be more equipped than the Baltimore Orioles to go out and get a guy. But in your mind, can you just walk through then how this would be approached here? Because it seems like the Tigers, if they're going to make a move, they're going to need a king's ransom.
Well, they are. And, that's why I'm a little skeptical that Skubal is actually going to be available. But if you're the Tigers and you have that that asset, and part of their plan is they're trying to show improvement this year, which they have, and they're trying to, I think, finish strong. They're trying to be able to compete within the division, the next year, and kind of, they've been a doormat really for the last couple of years there. So that's part of this equation. If you are going to trade a guy like Skubal, first off, you better get multiple pieces that can help your major league club. And secondly, it's got to be in line with some of the more recent trades. I'll go back to Dylan Cease, who was with the Padres, the Padres traded for even this spring training. Had 2 years left of control for him, and they got 5 prospects. I think one that was a top 50 prospect, but the rest were below that. And so you use that as a guideline if you're the Tigers, and you just basically set a bar. Here's what we'll accept. We're going to accept. It's going to have to be, it's going to have to be a Holiday, Basayo, Mayo. One of those guys has to headline this deal. Otherwise, you can't even talk to them. So if the Orioles aren't willing to put one of those guys into the mix right away, forget the conversation. You're the Tigers GM. You hang up the phone. You talk to somebody else and see what they're willing to offer. And then you build a package based off of that. You have to kind of decide. The Orioles have plenty of those top, 100 prospects in the sport. Their top 5 are better than most teams' number 1s or number 2s. So, you can deal from a position of strength. And you look at Skubal, you go, wow, that's a guy that can take me to the World Series, not just this year, but next year, the year after. Like, he's a guy that could take you to where you want to go. So, that to me are kind of the considerations on both sides.
Yeah. Well, then, okay, we'll do a hypothetical here, because you don't have to be too stressed, but I'll probably stress you out here a little bit. But that's the thing. The biggest name that gets brought up, and obviously Basayo, incredible talent, Mayo, but the name that everyone's talking about is Jackson Holiday. There was that other rumor that came out that they were imploring about a Jared Jones trade with Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know if I fully believe that. And I love Jackson Holiday as a talent, but as a GM for you're looking at the Orioles right now. They have a chance to win this year. You acquire a player like Skubal, you are the favorite in the American League, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it. But the Orioles have waited so long to build up this. In your opinion right there, how hard of it, or one, what is your view on Jackson Holiday's future? Right. And 2, how hard is it to make this decision here when you're trying to weigh the options? So
the most important factor you just asked me is, what do you think of Jackson Holiday? What kind of player is Jackson Holiday going to be? And if the answer is he's, an Adley Rutschman, he's a Gunnar Henderson type of player, multi-year all-star, the scouting scale is 20 to 80. He's a 70 on that scale. So that's like, you're talking about, in a 6-year period, he makes the all-star team 4 times, as an example, right? Mm-hmm. He's one of the top 20, 25 players in the sport. And he's a position player up the middle. I'm not trading him for anything. You could give me TARIK SKUBAL and something else. I'm not doing it. And he's 19. Like all these things kind of point to that, where you'd say, that's the one guy that I'm not trading. I'm holding him. And we all know the makeup, the family background, that kind of goes without saying. Like, he knows, he's been in the clubhouse. He navigates the clubhouse there. There's nothing that's going to be too big for him. He's got the slow heartbeat. All of those things kind of come into that 70 evaluation. So if that was the case, if I'm the Tigers, that's the only way I consider this. If I'm Mike Elias, he's the one guy I don't trade. So that's where, and so now it's like, okay, well, can I build a package around the others behind that? You know, that would be enticing enough for the Tigers to do it. And that's the nuanced part of the job that keeps you awake, that adds the stress level, you know, on both sides. And so I would not. And I mean, listen, you've seen Jackson. Would you do it?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't either. That's personally, I think people also, Jim, when we look at this, I don't know what the average age right now of a Major League Baseball player, but for a player that's on the younger scale, I think it's probably with Jackson Merrill being an all-star this year. He's one of the younger players in Major League Baseball. Jackson Chourio with the Brewers, another young player. But so Jackson Holiday hasn't even scratched the surface on what he can be. And I think people forget that when you're 20 years old. I mean, Jim, what were you doing at 20 years old?
Yeah, I was playing college baseball and had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we could all go back and look at our 20 years old and like, you know, can you imagine being on the cusp of being a superstar type of a player at the major league level? It just does not happen very. I mean, Manny got there at 19. You brought up some good ones there with Jackson Merrill, who was an all-star this year. Like, and those particular players have incredible value to teams, even small, mid-market, even large market clubs, because Bobby Witt Jr. gets to the big leagues, 2 years ahead or around the same time as Adley, and now they just signed him to a deal over $200 million to keep him for basically a lifetime. Yeah. That's what you're hoping that you have in Jackson Holiday, and I think they do have that type of player.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, and I agree with you with the Jackson Holiday part. That was a guy I don't want them to move. And also it's because you've built up all these pieces. That's why I like hearing this thought process. But people in Baltimore are very desperate for a World Series, right? It's been 41 years right now since the Orioles have been back to the World Series and won it. It has been a long stretch. But here's the other question with this. Everyone's looking at it on the other side is, oh, well, look how much the Padres got for Juan Soto. Oh, well, first off, there's a difference between a superstar hitter in his prime and a pitcher. Skubal and Crochet both have injury histories here. How much is that a concern for a team that's willing, even though they got team control? That's the appealing part, right? They got team control. What is the worry and fear for trading for a guy that has had recent arm injuries?
Well, so there's a couple of things that are related to that, right? So the greatest predictor of future injury is past history of injury. And so if you've had an injury already, there's a chance at some point in your future career that you're going to end up having some type of surgery. Secondly, if you're throwing in the high 90s, like Skubal is, you look around the game, we're at a incredible number of injured list placements for pitchers this year, starting pitchers, relief pitchers. A huge common thread is high 90s fastball, guys who throw high-end velocities and they're throwing max effort, every pitch. And that's the way that teams are asking them to pitch, and they're buying into that, with the hope that they're going to get paid at the end of it. But there's also a major risk there too. Any doctor, any trainer, any biomechanist will tell you that they're high risk. So, these teams that are willing to trade starting pitching, they're betting that there's a chance that they're going to get that pitcher that they're trading is going to get injured. And so you have to factor that into the acquisition if you're on the other side of that. And that's where, it's part of why I would not trade Jackson Holiday is, that risk that there is today in the game for starting pitchers getting injured, and then add in the fact that Skubal or Crochet have had injury histories as well.
So in this case then, though, and I agree, if there's a guy that you're like, for sure, all-star caliber, I can't let him go. But if Skubal's available here, would you be willing to trade one of those other guys like Basayo or Mayo? Do you think that would? And I'm very bullish on both those guys. Right. But if he truly is available here and that changes it for 24, would that be something you'd be willing to do?
It would, and I would clarify and say the one guy, and I love the kid. I love Basayo. I love the youth, but he's the one guy because you have Adley, number one. Number two, the way catchers are used these days, in terms of the workload, they're not catching 140, 150 games. Very rarely, right? Even Adley isn't catching for the most part that many games. He's DHing the other ones. Right. And so if you're going to plan on using Basayo in that role, well, what are you going to do with Adley? Unless you're planning on moving Adley to first full-time first base, which to me hurts his value a little bit, unless he's a 35 homer guy at first base, which he could be. But his huge value is the way he does everything well as a catcher. Hits for power, catches, fields, workload, the way he works with his pitchers, his preparation, all those things that kind of factor in with a good catcher. And Basayo is almost like a duplication for me for the O's. And so if I were to choose one guy as the guy that you would go ahead and earmark as the main portion of that trade, it would be him. And if I could keep Mayo, and that's kind of how I would distinguish it. And then Mayo I think has a future fit for the team, impactful, might even be this year. Towards the end of or after August. If there's an injury too. So that's how I would kind of view it in my mind.
It's going to be, this is the tough part of it. And this is why, look, I'm thankful I'm not having to do any GM decisions. I know you enjoyed the process, but I can't imagine that it was always fun for that process. And actually, we're going to make you, Kevin's going to have a question. So I want you to think back to some memories here when you were as a GM. So just get that mind thinking a little bit. But Rocco, I think you had a follow-up to this conversation. You had a question?
Yeah, just in general, as someone who's been in the position before, Jim, what do the next couple of weeks look like for Mike Elias? What does this month look like overall for him? Is he just fielding phone calls left and right, or is he reaching out to teams left and right? How often are you reaching out to teams? How often are teams reaching out to you? What does that whole big picture look like when it comes to a GM 2 weeks before the trade deadline, trying to make a deal for this team to put them in the best position possible going forward?
Yeah. So Rocco, it's a good question, because I think even leading into the last 2 weeks, there's been a ton of phone calls, and what you're trying to do is find out who's available. And part of that is, the trade market has been mostly buyers and very few sellers until recently, right? Because of the National League being so kind of mediocre. A lot of teams are still in the mix for the wild card. So, but in a week out from now, you have a couple teams that fall out of that, and they are sellers. You want to make sure you're staying on top of that. But you have a general conversation about the landscape of their particular team. You're touching base with every team, and then you're trying to narrow down, who fits the best, and that usually at this time is probably about 10 teams. You want to get it down to a manageable level where you can monitor them. You can evaluate their system all the way down to the complex league. And then, and if you have your scouts out there to deploy them out there, you're talking to your scouts as well. Hey, I need you to go here. I need you to go down to this. Tampa is an example of a team that's just recently come on the scene. Sounds like they might sell. If you didn't have touch base with them previously, now all of a sudden you're looking at that organization saying, all right, what's the fit there? Zach Eflin, a starting pitcher for them. Is he a fit? Is Pete Fairbanks as their closer? Is he a fit for you? Jason Adam, if he is, you're sending guys into their Tampa or Port Charlotte team or their high A ball and their complex league. You're starting to look at those guys. So that's the behind the scenes conversation that you're looking at, and you're taking that example I just gave you, and add 6, 7, 8 teams to the mix, and there's 3 or 4 teams per organization that you want to go see. That volume of teams becomes very, very large and almost unmanageable. And so that's where, if you're not talking to teams, you're talking to your scouting staff, your player development staff, or your analytics staff, or all of those guys, just to make sure you have some kind of ranking system, in terms, if you're able to do some type of deal. So, it's that aspect of it. It's maybe not as, you're not going as deep on the minor league side if you're Mike Elias, because you're adding a major league player, but you still want to have a handle on their systems.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You'll see a lot of reports come out there, guys, where when they say, and also I have some friends who are scouts too, and Jim knows this. For scouts, you think GM's times are tough. For scouts, it's saying, hey, we need you to go and watch this guy, and we need everything broken down. Not only are you going to watch the game, you're going back to your hotel room, and you are analyzing everything that you have to do with that organization specifically. So it's not just the GM here that is going to be losing their minds or going to be losing some sleep, to say the least. But I think Birdland here, Jim, at least, is from what we understand, they feel like a move has to happen. And Zach, I think that kind of alludes to what your question is.
Yeah, and Jim, you kind of talked about earlier, when you look back at the 2020 Dodgers, look back at the 21 Braves last year with the Rangers, they made big deals at the deadline. And for a lot of them, they made multiple deals at the deadline. Yep. And the Orioles, as good as they've been this year, they have holes. So in your mind, the Baltimore Orioles are successful at the deadline if they do what? It doesn't have to be names, but what do you think the Orioles need to do to put them in the best position to go win the World Series?
I think they need two things, Zach. I think they need a starting pitcher, preferably a guy that could slide in the third spot. Mm-hmm. And they need a back-end reliever of some kind. Could be an eighth-inning guy, could be a guy to be a co-closer with Kimbrel. When we know at some point, Kimbrel's going to get off track late in the game, you're going to want to have that guy to come in to bail him out. It'd be nice if it was a lefty. It'd be nice if it was somebody named Tanner Scott. Even though he's different than when he was here as an Oriole. I mean, he throws strikes now, and his stuff is dominating. And he can close. So there's guys like that. But I think they need those two things to go to the World Series. And what that does, two things. It gives you. There's no certainty in this, but especially like we saw last year in the first round. But it gives you that ability to overcome an injury that you can't prepare for in August or September. Somebody's going to get injured. And you used to be able to make trades through waiver claims in August. You can't do that any longer unless he's put on outright waivers. So, that you have to plan for that. And some teams don't do that, or they haven't done that. And that's to me, something that you have to really consider when you're trying to make a deal like this is you better get yourself, an extra piece. Even if you feel like you're okay with one, you might need another, and so that's what I think the Orioles need to give them the better chance of getting to the World Series. I think if they did nothing, they're a World Series caliber team. That's how good they are. Despite this last 10-game stretch, I think they're a World Series caliber team. But we've seen some weaknesses during this stretch that I would like to see them fill in with a trade or two.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think everyone still forgets that they are leading the American League East, or a half game back of the top spot in the American League, despite the struggles down the stretch. But every team needs to make adjustments. And Jim, appreciate you. I have a couple more questions, get you out of here. Sure. If you're new to the show, hit that like and subscribe button. We'd appreciate it. Jim, since you brought up third starter, and I think it's not always the sexy acquisition. I mean, hell, last year, the Rangers made some moves. They got the sexy pick or the sexy trade with Max Scherzer, but that's not the guy that actually turned out to be an X factor for their staff. It was Jordan Montgomery.
Right.
In your mind for 2024 here at the deadline, who do you think out of all those options could be a Jordan Montgomery type of impact for a team chasing a title?
Well, yeah. So, there's a couple guys that, you could consider in that, whether it's, like I mentioned earlier with Tampa, Zach Eflin is a guy that would be a sleeper type of starting pitcher that gives you innings. He's not a high strikeout guy, but he's a heavy ground ball guy, and he'd be good in that ballpark with this defense. It doesn't have to necessarily be Crochet. I'll tell you a sleeper, and I don't know if he's a number 3 type starter, but he's pitched like a number 3. He's Eric Fetty with the White Sox, and it wouldn't cost you nearly as much. I think that Chris Bassett with the Toronto Blue Jays is a guy that knows how to pitch, still has something left in the tank. You'd have another year that you'd have to deal with control-wise and contractually. But there are nights where he throws 4 or 5 different pitches, all of them for strikes. He adds, he subtracts, and he's kind of an old school guy that can dominate you on any given night. Not as much certainty, but he would give you an experienced guy there. So I think any of those guys. I've heard Flaherty's name has been mentioned again, and Flaherty last year and Flaherty this year, they're two different guys.
Way different.
So you don't want to get soured by what you saw Flaherty last year because he's pitching way better. So, he's a guy. It's harder, though, for Michael Ice to sell it to your fan base.
Oh, no doubt about it.
We just brought Jack Flaherty back. Like, everybody's going, that was a lead balloon, right? So, I would be cautious that to go down that track. And they're going to be wanting more because he's pitched so well. So I don't buy that Flaherty would be a fit here. And I don't think Mike would trade for him.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up, I've actually done breakdowns so far of Fetty, of Crochet, of who else did I do on this? We've even gone through Scherzer, gone through.
Yep.
But we're doing Skubal. I'm going to do Skubal today just to kind of show people just how really talented he is.
Yeah.
And I also did Jack Flaherty, and you're right, Jack Flaherty. Whether it was changing systems with St. Louis, how the organization is trying to get back to that form he was, 4 years prior to that.
Right.
And then also you're coming to a clubhouse and yeah, from the start, the fans, regardless of how the players felt him, the fans had a perception that he was a cancer. And I don't think that's fair to him, but that's a perception. And it didn't work out the way that everyone hoped here. So we're not saying Jack's coming back here, anyone. We're giving you options. This is why we have Jim on here, because he can give you the full picture. So I appreciate that, Jim. Kevin, I know Kevin has 2 questions. And Jim, this is where I need your memory to come back here for part 2 of the question. But Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, first, Jim, for part 1, I know we've talked about the deadline as a whole in a couple weeks prior, but I want to take you to actually deadline day and kind of the craziness and hecticness that comes with that. Do you have any insights or behind the scenes on just how crazy, going up against that deadline? How many calls are you making, all the teams you're monitoring, players, whether you're a buyer or a seller? What is that day like?
Well, so I'll give you an example, personally, but also one that happened with the Orioles, happened with my cousin when they were considering trading Zach Britton to the Astros. And, you guys might remember the year, but it was one of the years, obviously, they weren't in the postseason, but they were, getting close to trading Zach Britton. But they needed approval from ownership, and they were waiting that final day leading up to the trade deadline, and it ended up that they couldn't come to an agreement based on ownership there with the Orioles. And that's the hard part when you're a GM on both sides. You want to have everything buttoned up, including ownership approval, including the medicals that have been exchanged. If you can do that the night before, because there are a lot of things that can happen, and if something goes haywire leading up to that 5 o'clock deadline on the actual day, you want to have some time to maybe insert another player or two and all of those things that are behind that go with that, medicals and conversations with your scouts. So, you really don't want to have to make a deal last minute because you can make mistakes. And that's where you see, yes, there's a ton of calls going on there, but primarily it's not a, last minute, trade necessarily. It's the, the exchange of medicals.
So it's that type of mistake you're talking about. It's
that type of mistake,
it's like
right.
The little thing like that of, shoot, we're up against the clock here, and you rush something and something just gets, you know what? This is it. This is what we're talking. It
happened to me way back when I traded one of our top prospects, Scott Kazmir, for Victor Zambrano. Our medical team didn't have the time to find some, a page of prior injury history. And right as soon as we got him, second, third start, he got injured. That's a major mistake. That's a major mistake organizationally, but the general manager is the one who ends up, taking on the blame on it. Even if the medical team didn't see or didn't find that page until later, well, that's too late. So you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to be in that situation. And yeah, and I remember actually that was right when I was starting to pick up with baseball and starting. And man, I'm sorry you had to deal with that stress. that cannot be fun because then it's going to weigh on you. It solely is going to go on you because of you being the one in control, even though there's other things and other factors that are solved in it. All right, now for part 2, Jim. So get that brain ready.
Yeah. So for part 2, Jim, would you classify maybe the Britain Astros or the Casimir? Would those be the craziest experiences you've been a part of or heard? Or are there any other crazy or craziest deadline experiences that you've had that maybe come to mind?
I think those are the ones when you kind of look at it leading up to the trade deadline that stand out. I mean, there's always, something. I did a small. I want to say it. I'm trying to remember if this was. I think this was a deadline deal that I did back when I was with the Orioles. It was hot. I think it might have been in August, but I think it was leading up to it. They needed a catcher. We traded Javi Lopez to them for just what we thought was a fourth outfield type. The name is going to escape me at the moment, but we needed to move Javi because we had Ramon Hernandez. He wasn't, we weren't going anywhere. We were trying to get a prospect back in return. We did it. We did this deal. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it was an August trade. So that one maybe doesn't even necessarily apply. But those are kind of the ones that there's been years where we just stood pat, and those are like the absolute worst. I talked about one recently where you remember old friend Armando Benitez. Any of you longtime Orioles?
Oh boy!
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
I had
sugar.
Armando as a Met. And I traded him the night after the All-Star game was over. He was an All-Star. I traded him to the Yankees. And that was before you had social media. And I leaked it through some Yankee fans who said their worst nightmare was getting Benitez. And I said, well, your worst nightmares come true. I traded Benitez to you. And then they told their friends and it leaked out. And then I had to tell Benitez. It was in the papers the next morning. And I hadn't even told him yet.
Oh no!
And so I told him, and he was checking out of the hotel at the All-Star break, and that's when I told him. So there's deals like that stand out, but like right up to the deadline, there's not like that real sexy trade that I can recall.
So how did Armando take that?
He wasn't happy, right? He was going to set up Mariano Rivera, and then. What happened was 2 weeks into it, as the setup guy, he could not handle that role. He was an adrenaline junkie, and then they traded him to Seattle for Jeff Nelson, who could handle the role. If you remember Nelly back in the day, he was one of the best setup guys. So the Yankees, it took them 2 weeks to figure out that trade wasn't going to work, and they flipped them to the Mariners.
See, those are the insights there that we just don't know here, Jim, and I love it. Now we got to ask. Rocco and I he gave me that look here. You just mentioned, out of curiosity, for that Britton deal, who were you guys trying to get from Houston at that time? Do you remember?
Well, so that deal from I think that a young Valdez was in that deal. But I have to go back and look at that to see for sure. Yeah, the names from that you would go, oh my Lord. There was a couple of them, and I swear, I'm pretty sure is Valdez. I'm going to have to go back and look at my notes and text you later if that was.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure Valdez was in the organization at the time, but I think he was like in the minors. Can you imagine if Valdez right now was pitching for the O's?
Oh, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Zach's heart just skipped a beat there, but that's the part there that we're talking about, though, Jim, is prospects that you don't know what they could turn out to be.
Right.
And then that could be your worst fear type of thing. Like that's exactly what can happen. I know with some cases, this is another one, guys, that's recent. And I know he's had some, ups and downs, at least the suspension, but James Shield, right? James Shields.
Yeah.
The double S. Yeah. Sorry. James Shields got traded. And the player in that deal was Fernando Tatis Jr. And then he turned out to be the player that he is. Yes, he had the suspension, but he's a talented player, one of the best hitters in the game. So there it just goes to show, right, Jim? You never fully know until it happens. But, man, now Orioles fans are going to think, what if? What if?
That was
What
the second
if?
time Shields was traded, by the way. He was in KC.
Yep.
Or no, I'm sorry, he's in Chicago, but he had started in Tampa, and then I think he went to Kansas City. And anyway, it's a while ago. But
Hey,
you're
you know
right.
what?
Like, wow, Tatis Jr. Can you imagine? But they had to wait, I think, 2 or 3 years before he got to the big leagues. But
Yep.
Tatis is considered one of the best players in the sport.
Exactly. And that's the part of it, the waiting game. And that's the thing with the prospects. You have an idea, but you never know. They're like, I tell people this, Jim, they're lottery tickets. You think that one of them can hit and they are going to be unbelievable players, but you just don't know which one's fully going to pan out. You can have a better idea, but if you have multiple of those lottery tickets, you think you're going to hit on a few more of those players.
Right.
So
here's one more, Ryan. One
okay.
More. Remember when the Orioles traded oh God, the year they beat the Tigers in the first round, he started game 4 for them. They got him from the Astros. Right-handed pitcher.
Feldman?
No, it
was it not Ham? No,
Bud Norris.
Bud Norris.
Bud Norris. You guys remember who they traded for him, right?
Josh Hader.
Josh Hader.
Yeah.
Right. So you go and then Josh Hader didn't pitch for the Astros.
Nope.
Because then they traded him to Milwaukee a couple years later. But that's, and Bud was a number 4 starter back then. He was pitching better than that. But that's the risk that you have. And that quite honestly is the stress part of that job. Like, oh man, I know I'm giving up a good player here. I don't know how good he's going to be. Josh Hader turned out to be now they thought he'd be a starter and he ended up being a dominating closer, but that's the risk that you have in any trade deadline. But you're willing to do that if Bud Norris, even though he's number 4 starter, he helped you get to the ALCS. You wouldn't trade that at the end of the day. Obviously, you hope to get to the World Series, but getting to the ALCS, that's the farthest they've been since the end of the late 90s, right? And so I think that at the end, my cousin got criticized for that deal, but I don't know if they get to the ALCS if they didn't trade for Bud that year.
That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma here. Do we want to see success for a team that's desperate and the ultimate goal, not desperate, but the ultimate goal is to win the World Series with the opportunity where the flip of a coin, how great is this player going to turn out to be? And again, that's why, Jim, I can't afford to be in those positions with my hairlines because it will fall out way quicker than I need it to be. But I appreciate it. Last thing, this is a fun thing then. We'll get you out of here. This is brought to you by our friends over at Stuggies, and you spent a lot of time at a ballpark. Fair to
Love
say.
Stuggies. Love it.
I mean, great. So have you had the crab mac and cheese dog at all?
No, it's on my list. I didn't even know they had it until I saw their Instagram page. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on that, soon. So yeah, I need that for sure.
We can make that happen for you. Well, here's the question here. And again, I'm going to hold my breath, but it's crab mac and cheese those are toppings to me, right? That's not a condiment. So here's the question. Jim Duquette, you're at the ballpark. What is going on your hot dog condiment wise?
Well, I mean, if it's just the condiment, then it's got to be mustard. It's not ketchup.
There we go.
So no ketchup. I feel like that's a violation of every code.
Thank you.
But
I couldn't agree more.
Anybody on this list, I need to know that would put ketchup on their hot dog. Anybody there with you guys?
That guy.
Yep, right there. Yes,
right there,
Jim. I'm sorry.
I
know. Listen, I know you lost some respect for me, the little respect that you had for me, but I'll try to make it up to you somehow.
All right, definitely. You can buy me a beer. That's all. It's a very low
There you
bar.
go.
If you buy
There
me
you
a
go.
beer, I'm good.
All right, there we go.
That's-
We got you.
That's
We'll
the
do that for
deal.
sure.
That's the deal to break bread. But Jim, appreciate it. What are you up to so everyone knows? I mean, you're everywhere right now.
So yeah, thanks for letting me promote it. It's Sirius XM. I got my show 10 to 1 Eastern time, Sunday through Friday. The front office show on Sunday, we have a ton of general managers on it. And this is a time to listen, obviously, because we're getting close to the deadline. So that'll be, each of the next 2 Sundays leading up to the deadline. And then I do my usual stuff for SNY, and I do Mets pre and post up there in New York. I do about 30 games. So that's what I got currently. And then doing podcasts like Ryan Ripken's, which I always love.
Hey, yeah, perfect. And last, I'm getting roasted for this. I'll say, Spirit Bomb, I'm no coward. Parents didn't raise no coward here. Yeah, I eat a plain hot dog, Jim. Okay, if I don't have a special topping, is that okay?
Plane?
Yeah.
Plane is fine. Listen.
Thank you.
I had, full disclosure, when I was in high school, I had a terrible, I was superstitious. And the superstition was before every basketball game, I ate 2 hot dogs and a side of baked beans before every game. Now, I got to tell you, the guy who guarded me did not like it. But I had this streak of double figure scoring in basketball in high school, and as long as that was still there, I had to suck it up and eat hot dogs, and I ate a lot of them without any condiment whatsoever. Ryan, I had to be plain.
Wow.
So there you go.
How many bathroom trips did that involve? Is what the question
too
is.
many.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
I usually don't eat hot dogs anymore because I've had my fill in my lifetime. But
Yeah,
I will do some like Stuggies for sure. Let's go.
that's okay.
All
Perfect.
right.
And you see this is what you do. If it's work, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Superstition
That's
extends
exactly
beyond
right.
the players.
It does. All right, Jim. Appreciate you. Enjoy
All right,
the rest
guys.
of your day. And for everyone else, you want to hear more, we'll plug where Jim's going to be. But you want more front office minds and what's happening, Jim's the guy to hear more from it. So, Jim, appreciate you, and we'll
All right,
talk
guys.
soon.
All right. See you soon. See you guys.
Jim
All
Duquette,
right.
everybody.
Appreciate you, Jim.
Appreciate it. That was awesome. That was awesome.
That's great.
You left out the part, Rye, where you eat the plain hot dog with the skin cut off.
Again, since I was like 6
People don't forget.
Well, yeah, people do. You're just mad he just completely roasted.
I've been
was
roasted. I think I'm on a
crazy.
streak of getting roasted for ketchup on the hot dog.
That was a crazy
bad.
stray.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
he was like, when he not only said like you shouldn't eat hot dogs with ketchup, but then he asked for someone to raise their hand if they did. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Rocco was Drake, Zach was Kendrick, and I was just J. Cole. I was just out of it. I was just like, I'm not.
I almost did
I'm
bring
not.
up. I was like, do I call out Kevin for relish right now? But I was like, I'm just gonna.
I feel like it's weird. People are either so on one side or the other of the ketchup versus mustard debate that
Yeah.
relish is just kind of like whatever.
Did you meet
It's
Relish the
whatever.
other day, Kev? At Stuggies?
I did not.
That's sad.
I did not.
We should have taken you there. Done
I
like a
know.
little
The-
photo op
the-
like we did at Hollywood Casino.
Well, it wouldn't have worked that well because the side by side comparison is not as good as Zach and mustard.
That is
Where
true.
you know
I
that is
definitely-
that is a hot dog. If Zach was a hot dog, that's what Zach would look like.
I will say, casually bringing up Bud Norris in a conversation with a former general manager is one of the highlights of my life.
Yeah. Well, and the highlight of me today was fixing the StreamYard. I felt like Brad. I felt like Brad.
That was a big moment.
Did good,
It
Kev.
was.
So big.
good.
And then apparently Rocco was looking at me very
Proud?
proud. As
Yeah.
I
He was.
asking.
There was a
Proud dad
comment.
moment. It was a proud dad moment. I
It was
really
a-
did. You asked a great question.
You asked a great
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
But you know what? This is the part. If you're new to that channel, hit that like and subscribe button here. We're going to talk a little bit more about this upcoming series with the Orioles and Rangers, a couple other trade discussions. And again, for those that are new to the channel, we do this every Monday and Thursday. We're going to try to update the days as we can. But again, it's just about bandwidth for us. We'd love to do this on a daily basis. We are growing to do this. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, but to help us get there quicker. If you guys would love to join the Holy Shirts and Pants members or join the channel membership, there should be a join button, right, Kevin, right next to the group. It all
Yep.
goes back to making this process better so we can continue to give you guys content on a consistent basis. And we're going to cover a lot of things in Maryland and the Orioles and then the Ravens when it's football season. But yes, we are going to talk a lot of baseball. Why? We're at the spiciest time of the year when it comes to making moves and figuring out what's going to happen. And it's also a great reminder with the Bud Norris reference there. And thank you, Justin, by the way. We appreciate you for that. And there was another one in here that I might have missed earlier, right?
I think
there.
it was
Joe.
Yeah.
And Joe, I don't know if we got the worst trade in history, but we got a lot of damn good trades. And Joe, we always appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Joe. Oh,
Maybe not Rocco, but that's for a different discussion. But anyway, you can see the dilemma that goes through GM's minds to try to make these deals. And you don't know the fact that if it was true that Framber Valdez was in that, who knows if the Orioles would have positioned they would have been in, but maybe Framber on this team, who knows?
I also think it was really funny when he asked the guy in the Bud Norris trade, and everyone immediately said Josh Hader, and I said LJ Hose. So sometimes someone had to stick up for LJ.
Hey, dude, LJ's a great dude. by the way.
All-time jersey, by the way.
jersey.
All-time
That's the only
jersey.
reason I remembered it. I was like, I know his Astros jersey was incredible.
Yeah, and I guess why we were talking Rock, the schedule for 2025 was just released?
Indeed. Would you like to hear who the Orioles open up the season with in 2025,
I really
Ryan?
Yes,
would
I
actually
would.
like to hear game by game.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays in Toronto. They will be heading north to open their 2025 season on March 27th against the Blue Jays. Home opener, March 30th. Any ideas? Any guesses? Anybody? If you've already seen, I don't want to call on.
No,
you
I
because you already
actually
know.
haven't seen it. I want to guess.
Okay.
I have not seen it either.
I'm
Go ahead,
looking
Kevin.
at it.
Right.
Don't say it.
They've. All right. Sorry.
Can you give me a hint? Is it an AL East team?
Sure.
It's a
Well,
team
that's
that is red.
Red Sox.
Yeah. There you go.
That
okay.
was your hint. He asked if it was an AL
Let's
East team.
go.
He said a
I
team
got
is
that all by
red.
myself.
Could have been the Reds. Could have been the Cardinals. Could have been anybody.
But he already asked.
Oh,
if it
I
was
didn't
in
know.
the AL
Well, I didn't
East.
say yes.
I did though.
Oh well, that's
And
on you.
said- and their
You spoke
team
out
is
of turn.
red.
That's on you. And their series or season finale, is going to be a big one, especially with how this season is shaping up. I mean, next season, if we see much of the same, the Orioles and Yankees battling at the top of the AL East. Regular season finale, September 28th at
Not-
Yankee Stadium. in
Not just that. It goes the final 3 series for the Baltimore Orioles next year are 4 games at home versus the New York Yankees, 3 games at home versus the Tampa Bay Rays,
Yep.
and then 3 games on the road in the Bronx.
So you
Yeah.
think that they believe that the Yankees and Orioles will be fighting for the division?
7 of the final 10 games next year are going to be against the New York Yankees.
You know what's nice to see, though? That the Orioles actually have more than a day off in the month of June. It's like, okay.
Yeah, more, they're a lot more balanced off day wise. The least amount of off days they have in a month is, I believe, 3.
That's what it
And that
looks
is
like
August.
here, Kev.
And August,
Well,
June and August.
July, you have a nice, obviously.
Well,
Right.
we're not counting in the
But
All-Star break, Skippy.
both June and August they have 3 days off.
I'll say one thing, the schedule wise, there's 60 roughly for teams 65, 66-ish games for the second half of the season. That's really not a second half. That's a good portion of those games, 81 smack dab in the middle. So there really isn't that much left in this half moving forward. What day is the All-Star break next year?
It looks like it is on
Monday the
let me see, I can't-
14th of July.
14th through the 17th.
So it looks like it's going to be very similar to last year, how it's shaping up to be, which I don't know if players love that, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think they might like it to be a little bit earlier to try to get a little bit more rest. So we can see. We'll see what
One
happens.
thing that I am upset about looking at this schedule is, well, I guess I'm not upset about it. It just sucks to see they have to use ATH for the Athletics now.
I was about to ask what they're going to do.
Yeah, they
crazy.
did not put Sacramento. They did not obviously put Oakland. So it just is ATH for the Athletics.
Oh, they should have put the sack.
Boys,
They
yeah,
should have just
they,
put the
they
sack.
should have just put sack down. The month of September, just that final month of the season, looking at who the O's are going to face. I mean, it's a month full of some talented teams. You start with a 3-game series at San Diego. You go 3 games hosting LA and the Dodgers. Then you have a day off. Then you get 3 games at home against the Pirates, potential Paul Skeens matchup against whoever. 3 at Toronto, 3 against the White Sox. Then, like Zach said, to finish it off, you have 4 against the Yankees, an off day, 3 against the Rays, and then 3 against the Yankees to wrap up the regular season. So we talk about a gauntlet of June. That could very well be a gauntlet of September, depending on what the White Sox look like. We don't really expect them to be good in 2025, but you never know. You never know.
Hold up. We have to watch the video of how the Orioles announced that it was out because
the Coconut Mountie video.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
Hold
do you
up.
want to pull it up real
Yeah,
quickly?
I'm pulling it up real fast. Here is how they.
Check out our 2025 schedule at Orioles.com/schedule.
Dude, he just got smacked. He just got absolutely smoked.
Who do you think was on the other end of that? Do you think it was Kowser with
Yes.
just a bucket? It had to have been. Right?
Had to have been
Yeah.
Kowser.
Yeah.
That slap, you could hear that slap around the world.
That's
That water
man.
slap.
You really could.
Check out our 2025 schedule at Orioles.com/schedule.
Dude, it stunned him. Like he took a step back and everything.
And you know it was one take too because he's wet. Or he
Yeah.
wasn't wet and then he was.
Well, yeah, they got it right there. There's no doubt about it. But
Thanks,
holy
Kevin.
hell.
The O's media team does a great job, by the way. I mean, fantastic video.
Wait,
there.
you said
Yeah.
he got Never mind.
Never mind. Yeah,
Never
that's
mind.
just like,
Let's move. Hey,
let's move on.
before we get out of here, because we do
Oh,
have to.
we
We
do
got to
have-
wrap up here soon.
Yes.
Oh, they actually did.
confirmation.
Okay. All right. I didn't know.
I mean, it was obvious by the throw.
Oh, it
that had
was,
some
yeah.
velo. That had some,
Yeah.
that had some like. I know I'm going to get you here, and I'm going to have a lot of pleasure.
Can we
doing this.
do that with this show where I splash you with water and you say check out what we have going on the Ryan Ripken show?
We could, or we could
Except
throw you in the
it's
harbor.
actually vodka.
No,
It would
it'd have to be tequila. Thank you.
Nah.
All right, hey, let's do this Rangers-Orioles preview because that's what's starting tomorrow here. And before we do that, we got to talk about our good old friends, Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races up in
West
West
Virginia.
Virginia. That was our worst
Kevin,
one.
no, that was
This
why'd
was
you go
our
so
worst.
fast?
I really tried to jump in there.
Yeah, okay, and this is why
You're
when you guys
screwing up the sponsorship videos that we make, Kevin.
I was only like a
All right,
third of a
all right,
second.
all right,
off.
all right.
Redo it and
heel.
Shut your mouth.
heel. Now for our good old friends at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races.
Oh,
Redo.
Take 3.
Wow.
Take
Oh,
3.
here we
This is
go.
tough. This was tough. All right,
Count it
glasses
down.
on.
3, 2, 1.
3. You know what we need, and when you do this edit,
Yeah.
like 3, 2, 1, and then like that little beep.
Yeah.
You know we
there
need
you go.
that. Okay.
All right.
Beep. Our good old friends at Hollywood Casino up at Charlestown Races in
West
Virginia. That could be better. But our friends up there in West Virginia, it's only about an hour and 15 minutes from downtown Baltimore. It's an hour from Owings Mills. But we had some shows up there. We're going to have future shows up there. And again, show of hands, who likes complimentary? Complimentary. I do as well. If you are a Penn Play card member and you use your Penn Play card up at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races, you will get complimentary beverages, but they don't offer that in Virginia and Maryland, and it's close. Why not go there? And if you want to have a nice meal, the Final Cut Steakhouse, where I'm going to take everyone to have a nice steak dinner, minus Kevin, we will have a great time up there. And we have future shows, horse races, concert events, and I'm glad it took so long for us to get through that. But thank you guys, and thank you for our sponsor, Hollywood Casino. And last thing, actually, if you're into this type of thing, but again, you have to be 21 or older. If you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER if you have an issue. But you download the Penn Play app. Just download the app. You have a chance to win $2,000 worth in Penn Play money just for downloading the app. We will drop the link for all of you. All right. Now let's dive into this Rangers-Orioles series as we wrap up the show here. And look, coming out of the break, we know that the Orioles needed that win on Sunday against the New York Yankees. And for the Texas Rangers, people were wondering, seeing the reports, are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Well, this is going to be a very, very interesting stretch here for the next 2 weeks or so for Texas. They sit 5 games out of the division at 46-50. They're actually in a better position going for the division than they are going for the wild card spot. But guys, the Orioles won the series so far in Baltimore just a few weeks ago here. Now they're going to Texas out of the break. Level of excitement, level of I feel like this was a reset. I got to talk to some of the guys. They look like they're ready to get back on track here as they start a big series in Arlington.
Yeah. Level of excitement. I wouldn't say it's excited. I'm just more curious. Like you said, I think this was a great reset. I think these guys needed it. And especially coming off Sunday's win, just what a great way to kind of end that half of the season. You get a fresh start now. I'm more intrigued to see how the guys come out firing than I guess I am excited, because I still have expectations. I still think they are a damn good baseball team. I think they should take 2 of 3 in Texas. Obviously, we also said that about the Cubs, and we saw that went down. But just more intrigued by how the boys come out. Please hit with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
Let's just put that streak. Let's leave that streak of 1 for our last 36 in the first half.
The bats got cold. Put that to rest. I mean, they got really cold, like freezing cold. Put that to rest.
Iceberg-ish.
You went into the All-Star game on a high note. No matter how you did it, we talked about it last week. Win is a win. They got the win. That's the most important thing. They were able to stop that 5-game snide. So come out firing, man. Like, that's what we need to see the Orioles do. Their bats get hot. Their pitching look decent. And on top of that, if you're going to watch this game, watch closely at Texas, because some guys in that starting rotation, sometimes some guys in that bullpen, depending on who, could potentially end up being Orioles when it's all said and done. So for the O's to go in there, do their thing, take 2 of 3. I don't even want to say that because I've turned into the jinx on this show. Whatever I say, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, please
So
don't.
you know what? You know
Please
what?
don't.
I'm not going to say I'm taking
You
that back.
said it.
No, we're
Literally
going Men in Black. Just like wipe it from the memory right now. What I just said.
That's so crazy because I still remember you saying it.
Well, you should shut your mouth, Kevin.
Kevin doesn't
I
hold
thought-
any grudges, obviously, as you can tell there as
Yeah.
he sits there.
Well,
He
I think
remembers all.
I'm still just remembering. I think it was Joey and Kevin and Zach React saying Rocco cursed one player, Kevin ruined an entire franchise.
Yeah, no, it was you killed an entire
I
franchise.
killed an entire
But
franchise.
with that being said, we just need to see the O's return to their form in June when they were beating up on the good teams. Do the same thing with the not so good teams. You know, I saw a comment in here. Force the Rangers into being sellers at the deadline. Yeah, go ahead. Do it. Make the most of the opportunity at hand, and maybe you'll get something out of it when it's all said and done. We don't know who Texas is willing to potentially part ways with, if anybody. There was a report that they were potentially going to be sellers. Now we don't know. There was a report that Max Scherzer could have been available or made available at the deadline. Now he goes on a podcast and he says, yeah, no trade clause isn't going to happen for me. I'm sticking with this team. So we don't know. But we're going to learn a lot in the coming weeks. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but you know what? Also, with no player that's on their team is going to say, I want to get moved. They're not going to go out there and say it. You know, it'll be reports closer. But for the Rangers right now, like I said, they're 5 games back in the division. And guys, this is a team, their lineup just has underperformed. It's not that they don't have guys. This is a team that has a lot of those guys from last year. Now, Josh Young has missed so much time for them. That is one of their bright stars who was, you could argue, possibly could have been the rookie of the year if he had stayed healthy last year over Gunnar Henderson. But Adolis Garcia has not lived up to his expectations so far. Nate Lowe is starting to pick it up a little bit, but he doesn't have the homers right now. I'm looking at it right now. Only 6 home runs. Jonah Heim, an all-star a year ago, is underperforming for what they need. So if those guys can start to get going for them offensively, this is a team that can catch lightning in a bottle. So we got to keep that in mind. They're a good team. And I'll tell you what, though, if there's one piece seeing Yates throw in the All-Star game, did you guys see him throw, Zach?
Yeah. Also,
that guy, Yates looked good.
I mean, listen, Yates looked incredible. My biggest takeaway was I forget who they had him standing next to when they announced the All-Star, each player, but they did him horrendously dirty. They put him next to someone who was like 6'5", and Yates is not the biggest dude, and he looked so tiny.
Yeah.
But it performed incredibly. But my biggest takeaway was I was like, they did you dirty, bro.
Yeah. They did you dirty. They did the dirty, right, Kev?
Yes.
So I guess they did him dirty, and then he did the National League lineup dirty. So I guess it evens out.
Well, I hate when that happens, when people just look so much shorter next to me. Just I get it all the time.
It happens all the time. I can only.
Yeah, it's I bet you and Rocco get that more times
We
than
do.
you can count.
We do.
Another guy who
please.
another guy that they did horrendously dirty in pre-show is why did they put Eduardo Perez next to Tim Kirchin? That was
I noticed that
I was
too.
like,
I
I was
noticed
like,
that too.
Tim. I was like, come on, at least put Jeff Passan in between them.
Poor
keep
Tim.
it. That was so unnecessary.
How tall is Tim? He's like all of like 5'4", 5'5".
Him and Kevin would have a good contest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Tim would piece you up
He's
on the
5'5".
basketball court, though. He's a hooper.
He's listed as 5'5".
Yeah. You know what, though?
I'm
Tim,
5'7".
so Calvin went on their podcast. Tim and his son went on to it's a great game or what, I believe is the name of the show. And
I think, yeah.
And one, it's great because they had Scott Van Pelt on there previously too with all the accents. But Tim and my dad were talking, and my dad brought up that he's broken his nose 7 times. One of them was during the All-Star game. And so I looked at that, and it was a very good story. You know, it was taking a team picture, and one of the players was losing his balance, and then his elbow flared up and smacked my dad in the nose, broke his nose. But it's been broken 7 times. The other times were when my dad was playing. And I was one of those 7 people that broke Calvin's nose. So yes, yeah, I'll take pride in that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Actually, I think I told Matt Holliday that. And he's like, did you feel bad about it in the moment? No, I didn't. And after it, I felt terrible. But he reached, I teached, you know? So
Taught.
No,
Well,
you
Kevin-
reach, I teach.
it's you reach, I teach.
Well, if you want to put an ed, teached is not the proper
Kevin, no one
grammatically
is saying
formed correct
you reached, I
of
taught.
Okay.
teached. It's taught.
Okay. This is why we need to get out here.
Oh,
So we got to get ready then for our Holy Shirts and Pants members. We're going to post this in a little bit. But Rob Holding of Crystal Palace is going to be joining us for a special recording to talk about what's happening down in Annapolis. Apparently, he is a massive, massive American sports fan as well. Rocco, you have any final thoughts, concerns?
You know how your dad had the broken nose club, basically. So I think we need to, after the comments Kevin made, we can start one with him as well.
I've actually broken 4 bones.
Well, we're gonna break 5.
2 of which happened on the bat. I broke my foot in the same place twice because wow, I can't believe I'm admitting this in a public setting. I broke my foot in the same place twice because my friend crossed me up. And then the second time I shot a half-court shot and landed on my foot and was on crutches for 6 weeks. Plus, the first time I broke my foot was the night before my senior week. And I was on crutches for my entire senior week in a boot and couldn't do anything.
So just to clarify this, you broke your foot jumping, shooting a shot.
The
half-court
the first time it was in my driveway and I was defending my friend and literally he crossed me up. My foot just literally turned inverse and I broke my foot and was on a boot and in crutches. And then the second time I shot a half-court shot and I landed on my friend's foot because, I'm known for my half-court shot. So you have to defend me when I take a half-court shot and you got to get all of my face or else I hit it. So I did it and he defended me and I landed on his foot and my foot turned inverse again. I'm like, oh, hey, guess what? I already have the boot from the first time. So let's just bring it out. And you know what? I rocked that thing and I made a walking boot a fashion statement the entire time.
But
Okay. And you know what?
You have to get in my face on the half court.
Do? That's what I'm known for. I can't hit anything else, but I can hit a half-court shot. Because I shoot with 2 hands. I shoot like this.
Everyone's seen, no chance Kevin's seen this, Rocco, but I feel like we're in Billy Madison right now. And we just got the long answer about how the puppy lost his way.
Yep.
And at the end of it, everyone's really, I guess, feeling good about it.
Yep.
And then the host of the program says, I think everyone is stupider after hearing your comments. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Your soul, yes.
Wow.
Beautifully done, Rip.
That's exactly how
awesome.
it felt. And we're going to put this as a clip, and then we're going to play that as an overlay. But guys, let's get on out of here. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. The Ryan Ripken Show. We're covering Maryland. We're covering a lot of baseball, specifically around Baltimore. What? What, Kevin?
If you want to pull it up, you can pull it up.
In the chat right now.
Zach, you're not even looking. You're missing an all-time moment right now.
Oh, in the chat?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw it earlier. I was trying to get Rocco's attention.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right. On that note, though, hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to keep covering baseball around here. We're getting closer to the football season, so stay tuned for a lot of different activities we're going to have going on as the Ravens get closer to starting, but we're giving you all that Orioles content and around Maryland. So, guys, time to cue the music.
You're my boy, Blue.
Well, that does it here for another episode of the Ryan Ripken Show. As always, thank you for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the Orioles-Rangers series. But above all, have a day, have a night, and we'll see you on Monday for a brand new edition of the Ryan Ripken Show.